What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
When you look at Kelvin Benjamin, guys, he's 6'5", he's 245 pounds. He's probably a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end. Woo-hoo!
It's not the Dallas Cowboys, but it's a start.
No! You love this. And then...
Oh, the Denver Broncos!
Now stay tuned for 6 hours of exciting football action.
Stupid poetic justice.
Bears trying to cross midfield.
That's right. It's the first weekend of March. Adam and I are going to break down the NFC North this week. So I hope you guys intend to join us for the rest of the show. Sit back, relax, and enjoy, won't you? Hit it.
They called him the Galloping Gazelle. His habitat the frozen tundra of Soldier Field. For 6 seasons and 2 Pro Bowls, he grazed on the tasty green turf of the end zone. Until one fateful Sunday in November, when the Gazelle was stopped in his tracks by a big cat named Wayne Krzyzewski.
Smithies, there's a rocket in my pocket.
Want to come with me and Wally to the Super Bowl?
Oh, absolutely. My favorite team's in it. The Atlanta Falcons.
I'm exhausted.
Straight off the couch.
Yes. Thank you, one and all, for showing up today in the audience. Before we get too far involved, though, let me bring in my broadcast partner, my friend, my partner in crime, Adam, the ever effervescent and affable Adam Weidel. Adam, how's it going, brother?
Hey, Terry. It's another week without football, but I'm starting to cope with it a little bit better.
Are you?
How about you?
You adapting a little?
Yeah, the adaptation is happening. So you have to adapt or you don't survive.
Adapt or die.
I did have a little bit of interesting football stuff. I don't know if people out there have Apple TV Plus, but they have I'm a big New England Patriots fan. Don't tune out just because I said that, guys. I know they're like the Darth Vader of the NFL.
Yeah, but as happened in a lot of the Star Wars movies, Darth Vader's losing.
The last 5 years, yeah. So Apple TV Plus has this docu-series called The Dynasty, which followed the New England Patriots over 20 years. And I was quite shocked. The last episode that they had was a whole episode on Aaron Hernandez.
Oh, that's a something.
It's huge because it was a no talking point for that franchise.
For the organization, yeah.
Yeah, like players were instructed not to talk about him. When he was charged, they immediately released him from the team and said, nobody talks about him to the media. And they show the interviews where it's just like, our coaches told us not to say anything, so that's what we're going to do. And Robert Kraft discusses it and how close he was with Hernandez, sorry. I almost said Aaron Rodgers there.
Yeah, no, we're going to get to him in a couple of weeks.
But, yeah, and then Belichick, typical Belichick. He's like, yeah, that's in the past. We're not talking about that.
We're on to Mac Jones.
On to Cincinnati. But, yeah, if you have Apple TV Plus and you like football, you don't even have to be a Patriots fan. It's super interesting because of what happened in that whole draft class of 2010.
Right. Yeah, that was an odd draft, if I remember right.
It was a big draft. They got Aaron Hernandez, Rob Gronkowski, and Devin McCourty in that draft.
Right.
That was a big draft for them.
It was
massive.
That's a big haul until Hernandez decides to kill somebody.
And they got them all in like the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. Like it's insane.
But that's what Belichick has always done, is found talent in the later rounds, you know?
So anyway, if you want to see, if you're into, murderers that played football, I'm sorry. It was just one of those things where I was just like, I can't believe they're talking about it, because in every other series that followed either Tom Brady or the Patriots, Aaron Hernandez they would show him catching the ball, but they'd never say his name.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, you can't acknowledge it, because if you do, you give weight and credence to what occurred. And that's just, the organization doesn't do that, you know.
The Patriots even went to the distance of not allowing the number 81 jersey in their stadium
to be displayed. Wow.
So in Patriots Place, they had a trade your 81 today for any other active team jersey. So you could take in your chili stained Aaron Hernandez jersey and get a fresh, brand new tagged Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski jersey, whatever, with tags, just because they didn't want them in the stadium, period. They separated themselves so far from that.
Did you see the NFLPA this week came out with their player report cards?
Yeah, so I really don't understand the player report cards. So they named
what it is they give the players a chance. They give them a survey, and it's kind of, you know, the same survey for all 2,000 players, however many there are, and they rank the team on the way they treat their families, the food, the cafeteria situation, the nutrition, dietitian stuff, you know, how well they work with the guys to you know, keep their bodies in shape, the condition of the locker room, the condition of the training room and the training staff, and the weight room. They rate the weight room. Did you see how bad Kansas City's score was?
Did you see how bad Patriots' score was?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Let me see if I can find the Patriots.
Treatment of families, F minus.
F minus.
F minus.
Yeah. They got an F on the weight room. You know, everything else was B's and C's, but the weight room was.
They got a D plus on the owner.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of that, simply because, you know, millionaires and billionaires fighting over money. The Commanders got pretty much everything at F, with the exception of the way they treat their family in the weight room. The Eagles were
the best.
I'm looking at it, and it's really hard to tell, because they're not. They don't.
It sounds like disgruntled players.
Carolina had a really good score for everything. Everything was B's and C pluses and A's. The Bears were pretty good. They were all C pluses, A's and B's. You know, the Bengals had 3 Fs, a D plus, a B, and a B. The Browns, C pluses and D pluses. You know, Dallas came across pretty well. The only thing they got a low score on was the training staff. They got a D plus on the training staff. But it's just basically a way for the Players Association to give feedback to the teams. This is what we need you to work on. You know. Yeah,
this is what you could do better. Yeah. I mean, if you want to pass into grade 6 next year. But you got to up those scores.
I was surprised. I was surprised at Kansas City scores. I really was. The only thing that really got a good score was Andy Reid. Everything else was really, really poor.
So, I mean, I can understand a lot of it, because look at Carolina. They scored the best.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They only won 3 games.
Did you see the Raiders have a really good score? But they should. That's a brand new stadium. Conversely, though, the Chargers and the Rams had really bad scores in their new stadium.
So it's disgruntled players, I guess.
Actually,
for the most
no.
part.
The team that had the best, Miami Dolphins, got all A's.
Well, they're pretty happy. They're pretty jazzed, man.
Yeah, and I mean, you're playing in Miami. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's no bad days when the sun's shining.
The Vikings got a pretty good score. The Vikings got mostly A's with a couple of B's. So, yeah, I mean, it just, where does your team want to spend money is the way I read this. And, you know, that some teams just didn't want to spend money. Remember the scene in Moneyball where David Justice is like, wait, I gotta pay for my own pop? There are a couple of teams that make, and I think Arizona was one of them, that make their players pay for lunch. And the players are like, well, wait a minute, I got to pay for my own lunch?
Yeah, I mean, that's almost petty.
Well, and I can hear the conversations being had. Oh, they're all millionaires. Well, No, they're not. A lot of these rookies aren't millionaires. And as soon as they got that contract, relatives started coming out of the woodworks going, hey, can I get $100,000? You know, most of those first and second year players are struggling to get by. They're not instant millionaires very often.
And the IRS wants their chunk of that too, right?
Yeah.
So they're not getting millions of dollars. They're getting a portion of that.
Yeah.
Agent fees, you name it, right?
Rush Limbaugh once said, "You'll see a lot more liberals become conservative when they play their first down in the NFL."
There you go.
Because it's just like you said, the IRS gets their chunk and everybody gets theirs, and so
yeah, you got agents, you've got.
Right.
I know. And then they spend ridiculous amounts of money on things like their houses and cars, and
they got to have the flash. Yeah, they got to have the flash.
Yeah.
It's very few people that are like what's his name? The quarterback. I forgot his name, but he pulls up in the van he's owned since high school. You know, I forgot his name. I think he played for he was one of like the backups for the Rams or the Chargers. But yeah, he's driving around the panel van he bought in high school. Mitch Trubisky famously was known to pull up at the Bears facility driving his Toyota Corolla he got as a senior. You know.
Yeah, well, they had to recall 1986 Toyota Corollas because it's about time somebody else bought a new car. Fucking things run forever, man.
You can't beat a good hoopty, brother.
Jeez, like the bodies fall off and you're just driving a Flintstone mobile. Motor's still running, million miles.
So today we're going to talk about the NFC North.
Okay, so we did this with the AFC North last week. We need to talk about their needs as a team. Are they in a rebuild stage still, or going into? Do they have a chance at making a playoff run? And then the biggest question, could they be Super Bowl bound? Now, one mistake that we made last week, we talked about the increase in the salary cap up to $255 million. But for our friends that don't understand the salary cap, which actually can be quite confusing.
Yeah, it's not simple. It's not like it's a simple formula, no.
We didn't explain it. So I just kind of want to go over quickly what the salary cap is and how it changes the dynamic of a team's decisions. So the cap in the NFL limits how much a team or each team can pay players on its roster in any given season. So this year it went up a bit, $255 million. So for this season, they're allowed to spend that much money on all their players total.
That's practice squad. That's people that are on the roster that don't start. That's everybody.
That's everybody. And that includes staff too.
Right.
Like training staff, you name it. And
right.
You don't see those numbers, but there's somebody in the head office that has to adjust the cap space. And what will happen is if a team is looking to go over their cap, the head office may talk to some of their players on bigger contracts to restructure them over a longer period of time.
Right, kick the can down the road, yeah.
Yeah, or to have incentive bonuses or something like that, which doesn't affect the cap. There's a lot of different things in order to increase cap space to make it easier to attain newer players in free agency or trades and so on and so forth. So I've analyzed the cap space for all our teams this week that we're talking about. I should also talk about dead cap. So dead cap is something that affects the team's salary cap as well. Right. And I know this is super confusing for a lot of people because they're like, what's dead cap? So dead money is basically a salary cap charge for players who are no longer on the team's roster. So
for example, when they trade a player between teams, sometimes the original team will pick up part of that salary in the trade, and that is dead cap space.
Yes. So Team A trades a player to Team B. Team B trades two players back. But Team A's player was such a superstar stud that he had a very expensive salary. Team B decides, okay, we'll go with this trade, but you're picking up a quarter of his salary. So we'll say the salary is $1 million for 5 years. So that is $1 million in dead cap space per year
for that
for
player.
5 years.
For that player.
For that player.
Right.
So it goes against their salary cap.
Right. Well, and that also can be affected if a player decides he signs a 5-year contract 3 years in, he retires or he gets injured, that dead cap space is affected by that as well.
Yeah, and that, I mean, it's big on guaranteed contracts. You know, if a player has a guaranteed contract for 5 years and gets, you know, basically can never play again because of an injury in year one.
Right, you're stuck.
The team's on the hook for 5 years, whatever that contract is.
And that's why you'll see teams like the Bears did a couple years ago, where they start trading players and cutting players, and you know they field basically a roster of guys that would never make third string at an organization like Kansas City, and you have to play that way for a year or two to clear off all that dead cap space so you can start from scratch and start building a roster, which is what the Bears have been doing the last couple of years. And a lot of teams do that on a regular basis. Carolina is doing it now.
So the way I've structured this week, how we're going to talk about these teams is based on cap. So first team in the league in this division that we're going to talk about, and I know you're going to be very happy about this, Chicago Bears. They are third in salary cap, which is great. You want to be higher in the salary cap. That means you have more money to play with. They have $78.6 million in salary cap space to play with, and they have a dead cap space of $10 million. So $10 million has come off that 78, so it should be 88,
right?
But it's
right.
78, and they are third in the league. There's only 2 teams above them that have more cap space,
and that's going to allow the Bears to what they're going to draft. I think Justin Fields is gone at this point in time. As much as I'd like to see them keep him for another year and draft a quarterback, that's what I would love to see happen. Keep JF1 and draft a quarterback and let the new guy sit for a year while Justin plays out his rookie deal, because that's money you've already spent that money.
Or you know, Justin doesn't do so hot, so they rotate in the new hot rookie.
Right.
In a game to see what he's made of. Give him some reps, right?
Right. Get him. But there's a huge change from the college game to the pro game. Just the difference in schedule lengths. You go from 12 games to 17. That can take a wear and tear on your body. You saw a lot of first-year guys in week 13, 14, 15 starting to run down because they're just not used to that grind. You got stuff like that, and then you got the whole family coming out of the woodwork. Oh, you're in the NFL now, you know. You're my buddy, and then your old friends are coming out of the woodwork. People you haven't talked to in 5 and 6 years, and you know. And
all of a sudden, you need to spend money on 50 tickets to get everybody into the stadium.
Right. So I'm a big believer, and I hate to give them credit, but that's one of the things I appreciate about the Packers. They did it when Brett Favre was started. They brought in Aaron Rodgers and let him sit for 2 or 3 years, and just get used to all the ancillary shit that goes on being a football player in the NFL. And they did the same thing with Jordan Love, their current starter. Let him sit for 2 or 3 years. Let him get used to it. Let him get used to the schedule and the practice routines and all the, like I said, the buying a house, buying a car, taking care of family. You get all that squared away, and then when you hit the field, you're not worried about your mortgage.
So I think there's 2 teams in this division that have QB issues. The Bears being one of them, and it's more of a media issue than it actually is a actual QB issue, in my opinion.
I agree. And I'm not a fan of all the speculation. You know, are they going to trade him? Are they going to draft? You know what? I'll wait and see what happens at the draft, because all that draft speculation drives me completely insane.
I don't feel like he played horribly last year.
I do feel
that they do need to go after some offensive weapons in the draft.
I would like to see him with that number 1 overall. Ryan Poles, their general manager, one thing he could do is trade that first round draft pick to another team that wants the first pick overall, and you're going to get this year's first rounder out of them. So let's just say the team right behind the Washington Commanders. So you trade with Washington so they can get the number 1 draft pick. So you get Washington's number 1 for this year, and you get like this year's number 2 and next year's number 2 and maybe the third year number 3. And then you're at number 2. There's going to be a lot of teams that want that second one as well. If Ryan Poles plays this right, he can probably trade that number 1 overall 2 or 3 times and pick up a lot of extra draft picks in the second and third round if he's careful and does it the right way. And then you get like Marvin Harrison Jr., who I happen to think is a fantastic wide receiver.
Me too, but and then you got my team, which is not in this division, but Patriots picking at 3. I'm kind of hoping that he's still on the
board at 3.
There. Yeah, on the board at 3, and they can grab him. Now, who knows? We're not in the
we're not
the
draft experts. Yeah, we're not draft.
We're not draft experts, and we don't know what they're going to do. And I mean, a lot of it has to do with. That's why I brought up the salary cap at the beginning of this episode, or before we got into it.
Right. Because if you have you want to be drafting from a position of want, not a position of need. If you need a quarterback, you don't want to be in that position in the draft. The other team in the division that has a quarterback problem is the Minnesota Vikings, because Kirk Cousins' contract is up and he's had this soft tissue injury and he's older. And what I read this week is if Atlanta had their druthers, they would rather have Cousins than Justin Fields, because that's the number one trade place right now for Justin is Atlanta.
There's a lot of, between the Vikings and the Bears, it sounds like Cousins and Fields are the hot topic to go to Atlanta, Pittsburgh has already kind of said we're not going to take a free agent or trade. New England's
a possibility.
There's another one in there too, but it's just the media speculation, the media rumors. They're looking at combine this week.
Las Vegas is another one that's in the trade rumors for those guys. So.
But Bears, getting back on the Bears, what do they need to draft? What are their needs? So they're 12th overall defensively. They made some really awesome
12th overall, but that was for the entire season. The last 6 weeks of the year, if you were to break it down, just the last 6 weeks, they were one of the top. They're one of the top 3. Yeah. So.
Okay, so just to put it into perspective, the 2022 season, their defense was 29th overall.
Right.
So that's a huge boost. So that defense began the first half of 2023 because they didn't make a lot of changes.
Right.
And then they brought in some real firepower with Montez Sweat,
who played phenomenally. He was just
their defense is rocking right now, and I think they're going to probably, everybody in the league, I don't care who you are, is going to have to draft corners. Corners go down
all
so
the time.
Fast.
All the time. One thing I saw today, I read an article. I forgot his name. One of the Dolphins defensive tackles doesn't want to stay. His contract is up and they're not going to franchise him. And it's pretty much he's going to go on the market. I forgot his name, but he was one of their big stud tackles. Let me.
There is a lot of stuff like that happens. Probably because there's no more incentives on his contract. Where he's trying to renegotiate with another team. Miami, we'll get into NFC or AFC East. I guess that's next week's topic because we're going around the compass, right? So AFC East next week, we'll talk about Miami more. But you know that the Bears were tied for the most interceptions in the league?
Yes, I did know that.
They were 22 interceptions with San Francisco.
Yeah.
The only other team that had the most interceptions.
Was it Raekwon Davis or Christian Wilkins? I forgot which one, but one of those two
Christian Wilkins, I believe.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be there anymore. His contract is up. If he's going to be a free agent, the Bears obviously have money to spend. You put him and Sweat on the same line, and that's going to cause havoc for a lot of players.
So, yeah.
But I'd like to see the Bears figure out a way to get Crosby in a Bear uniform too. That would be insane.
Max Crosby, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I know, but there were some rumors mid-season. I was like, ooh.
I'd love to see him in another uniform because I think he could do some serious damage.
Yeah, he can. He's relentless. He's one of the most relentless defensive players I've seen in a long time. He never, ever, 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 ever stops. He's so much fun to watch just from that position. So Minnesota, They have Jefferson. He's a great wide receiver. Their running back position, they always did a running back by committee. I don't think that's going to be too bad. Their defense last year, I think, had struggles in stretches, but overall they weren't bad. It was a decent defense.
Are we on to the Vikings?
Yeah, because we were.
Oh, we didn't finish off with the Bears.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We talked about their needs. How about a possibility of a playoff run?
I would like to see it. I really would.
Honest, unbiased opinion.
Honest, unbiased opinion. I think it's going to depend on who the quarterback is. I really do. Because rookies, unless you're C.J. Stroud, rookies often struggle.
I think they missed the playoffs. I hate to say that. I just think the division's too competitive this year, and Super Bowl's definitely off the table.
No, absolutely.
Okay, we can definitely move on to the Vikings next in line here. They are 16th overall in cap space. They have $34.7 million. Only 3.5 of that is dead cap.
And does that include any Cousins money or no? Are they pretty much going to have to draft a quarterback is what I'm getting at?
I think they're going to have to draft somebody if they're going to get away from Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. And
so they're middle of the league in cap space. It doesn't matter, right? They're gonna wiggle around. Like, this is only like initial salary.
Right. There's gonna be some players cut, and that's gonna free up space, and they're gonna do other things and free up as much space as they can. And
we'll find more come 10 days from now when the actual new league year starts, and they can actually start making some moves. Because if they start getting rid of like trainers and people like that frees up cap space too. Right.
Well, what was their defense ranked overall last year?
So do I have their defense? Let me see. Okay, defensively, I had them up here in front of me a minute ago. I hate how they change everything after the Super Bowl's over. You can't quickly assess stats. So I've got the defenses up in front of me. Let's have a look at
16th overall is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, middle of the road.
Defensive average yards allowed was 333.2 per game. So
yeah, so yards allowed. Yeah, they're about middle of the pack.
Touchdowns allowed was 38. No playoff numbers at all, obviously.
No.
So they're not great, but they're not bad. They'll get the job done on defense.
So they do have a little bit of an issue. They have Daniel Hunter on their team, who is a free agent. He will be an unrestricted free agent. He's been with the team for, I believe, 9 years. He logged 16 and a half sacks last year, which is a high for that team, to be honest. Are they going to pay him, or is he going to go?
That's a good question.
He'd fit in really good in Chicago. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But if I were him, I mean, this is an edge rusher. They're sought after in the league, but the grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fence, or the other stadium. It's definitely not as green as it is in Lambeau all year round.
Looks like the Vikings were 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. They were rated 10 on offense overall. 10th overall on offense.
Not horrible. They were fourth in rushing overall, so they've got a good ground and pound game.
Yeah, they do.
So begs the question, okay, what do they need? They need a quarterback.
They need
what
a
else?
quarterback.
I mean, everybody needs a quarterback unless you've got a stud like Mahomes.
And they've got a couple of pretty good wide receivers. Maybe a tight end. They might need a tight end.
Yeah, and they're probably going to need some defensive stability. They're going to need some young guys. And like every team, corners. Everybody needs corners.
Minnesota's third down percentage was 38.1. Their fourth down percentage was 58. So they're just about, 500 when it comes to their first down stuff.
Unfortunately, it's hard to talk about the Vikings until we find out what happens with Kirk.
Yeah, it really is.
He's kind of their linchpin, right?
He is. I don't see none of these numbers are jumping off the board. Total yardage for.
Can they make a playoff run this year if they keep Kirk?
I doubt it. Just because Green Bay and Detroit are sitting there ahead of you, man.
Yeah, and I think the Bears have a better chance of
going a little
winning.
deep, having a better record, and maybe sneaking in as a wild card. Yeah,
maybe a wild card, but I think they maybe pull off 8 or 9 wins this year, possibly 10, depending. This division's tough. This is a very tough division. People don't give it credit.
I like to call it the Norris division of the NFL, going back to a hockey thing. Remember the old Norris division?
Old hockey.
Yeah. All right. Old hockey, eh?
Old hockey, eh? We got the Hartford Whalers.
You got the North division. You got the Blackhawks. You got your Red Wings. You got your Penguins. The old Norris division of the NFL. That's the NFC North.
Yeah. So people don't give this division as much credit because, I mean, historically.
Oh, it's been Green Bay.
with a little Bears sprinkled in from
Minnesota
in the 80s.
And Minnesota one year. Minnesota had that 1 year where they,
But yeah, the Lions were not competitive, which brings us to the number 8th ranked salary cap team, the Detroit Lions.
I think they're gonna just keep rolling, man.
Have $52 million in salary cap space, and 23 of that, or 23 off the top of it, which brings 52, is dead cap.
Their defense was ranked 19th last year.
Yes, so they need to spend some money. Definitely need to spend some money on the defense, either through draft or free agency, because their open field tackling was absolute garbage.
I saw more arm tackles watching Detroit games than I did any other team in the NFL last year.
We watched those playoff games and we said, why didn't he touch him?
Yeah.
They didn't. Their tackling was awful. And then you look at a team like San Francisco that, made it to the Super Bowl, and they're playing them, and the guy gets a ball and you're swarmed by 5-6 guys. But the Lions, it was just like they were playing ring around the rosy, a do-si-do, like trying to arm tackle these guys, and they're just getting by.
Yeah, they looked like their defense was playing flag football. It really did.
Yeah, it was awful.
But
awful.
Conversely, their offense is 3rd overall in the league.
Yeah, so I'm not really concerned about their offense. I'd like to see them maybe grab a complimentary tight end in this draft to help Sam Laporta out, because I think that guy worked way too hard.
Oh, but man, he did what he was supposed to do, though. Laporta was fun to watch. He really was.
Yeah, but I mean, if they go with that 2 tight end package and they get somebody that complements Sam Laporta, and they have a awesome tandem tight end duo, I think they can do a lot more damage on offense, but their defense definitely needs some bolstering. And that's going to come down to, they need corners too. They had corner issues last year. Everybody needs corners. I don't even know why I keep saying it. Corners are important.
They're worth their weight in gold. They really are. And
apparently in this draft, we're going to see a white corner for the first time.
Yeah, so
it's historical. It's apparently there's been no white corners in the league, so that's shocking to me, because I never even thought of it like that.
Yeah, but there's been a few safeties that have doubled down on stuff like that. John Lynch comes to mind,
Fair enough, but I was just I never really thought of it like that. I look at the name on the jersey and how good he does in that uniform, and I'm just okay, cool. And half the time they're wearing a tinted visor, so you can't tell what color they are to begin with. So the fact that somebody said that and said there's a white corner in this year's draft, I was just okay, so, and they're yeah, we've never seen one. Huh?
Yeah, not since Bronco Nagurski was on the field did we see a white cornerback.
It's just crazy. So yeah, I'd like to see who gets that guy. Just because he's historical all of a sudden.
So yeah, Detroit's going to have to address defense, and
their defense needs a big.
How much cap space do they have?
They got $52 million.
So they're not really big. They're really not going to be able to do much through free agency on this. They're going to have to draft and develop.
it's hard to say. They're 8th in the league, like in cap space. So, I mean, 52, like they've got more room than anybody else.
Well, that and they played so well last year, and they're probably gonna play well again this year. They might be able to attract somebody who just like on a 1 or 2 year deal just wants a ring. You know, an older guy who's can still produce, but he's on
like a Von Miller situation.
Right, something like that, where he comes in and gives him 2 years, he gives you a bump, and he gets you over that hump, and you get to the Super Bowl. I can see something like that happening too.
So we've addressed their needs. Are they making the playoffs? I think 100% yes. I think they win the division.
Unless they do what Detroit has done historically, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I think they win the division.
But I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a very close 1-2 between them and Green Bay.
So that brings us to the 20th ranked salary cap franchise, and that's the Packers. They only have $13.6 million to wiggle with because 15 of it's dead cap.
Yeah, and I think a big chunk of that 15 is Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
You know,
I think it's all of it, to be honest.
Yeah. Their defense was ranked below the Vikings. Their defense was ranked 17th, and their offense was ranked 11th.
So they're big fans of this whole youthful young player.
Youngest team in the league, right?
Yeah. I mean, who told you that?
I think it was Tony Romo. I think it was Greg. What's his name? Greg Gabriel and Greg Olson, and I think Al Michaels might have mentioned it once or twice. Kirk Herbstreit might have mentioned it once or twice.
It was awful the amount that they said that.
You know, Chris Collinsworth I think said it 137 times in one game.
Yeah, in the first half of that game. Like, now there's a guy that has the youngest team in the league. Overall, they're only 26 and a half years of age and 14 months and 2 days and 3 hours.
The Packers gave up 335 points for the year.
I think the big deal with them is their offense. Jordan Love, as you said earlier in this episode, sat on the bench behind, one of the greats.
Yeah, and the first 2 or 3 games, he didn't look uncomfortable, but he didn't look as comfortable as he did at the end of the season. At the end of the season, he was completely locked in and zoned in and hitting his targets.
Well, when they did throw him in because they had to give him some reps when Aaron was still on the team, he didn't look good, and the media was all, Jordan Love's a bust.
Right, yeah.
And now that the shadow is gone and he's not living in somebody's shadow anymore, and he got some reps in and he got more comfortable with the team because he's QB1.
Right.
He's getting all those practice reps in and he's knowing his guys better and he's actually building a bond with them.
Right, getting that chemistry working pretty well.
Holy moly. Wow, look what can happen when you build. And I mean, their playoff run was scary.
Teams didn't want to play him at the end there. No, you didn't want to face the Packers because didn't know.
What they did to the Cowboys was just wow.
Let's face it, though. It was fun to watch the Cowboys go down.
Everybody but the Cowboys fans enjoyed that one. But yeah, it was fucking wild to see this. And then, so they need some love. No, they don't. Not under center, but they definitely need to address some of their offensive needs. They have weapons, and Love can extend a play, but I think they really need to spend some money on some tight ends.
Tight ends and maybe a wide receiver, because let's face it, that ground game is pretty dialed in. They got the ground game figured out.
Yeah, he doesn't have anybody. He doesn't have any outlets. That's the biggest problem. He needs wide receivers and tight ends, and their defense isn't horrible. It's middle of the road. And
what he needs receiver wise, if not a tight end. You need that possession guy that you know is always going to get the ball. There's every team every team needs that one guy that no matter what, if you give him a 50-50 ball, he's coming down with it. He's a possession receiver. That's what they need, is that 50-50 guy.
Yeah, they need a Justin Jefferson or a Randy Moss type guy.
Yeah.
Little Mike Evans, even though Mike Evans didn't, he had a little bit of the dropsies last season.
Evans, I saw an article this week too that he wants to stay. If they can work it out, he wants to stay in Tampa. So,
Why would you want to? Why would you want to end your career with any other team?
Well,
he's been with Tampa for 10 years.
Yeah.
Why would you want to go anywhere else?
Little
Wide
long in the
receiver
tooth.
shelf life isn't like, it's a hard job. Like 10 years in the league is pretty much shelf life for a player.
I know Philadelphia was interested in him, but could they make it work is the question. But he kind of made a statement that I'm happy where I am and I want to finish my career here in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, it's just a matter of numbers, I guess, and agents talking to lawyers and stuff and all that garbage.
So what's your how do you see the NFC North, the Norris division playing out? You said you see the Detroit Lions winning the division.
I see the Lions winning out. Because honestly, if a draft doesn't happen and a free agency doesn't happen and we just have these teams again, the Lions are the best put together team right now.
They're the most complete team, yeah.
They're the most complete, and you've got like the coach who has to have a big Mack truck carry his balls around for him. So they like to gamble.
Well, thank goodness they're in Detroit because there's big trucks up there. They make them in Detroit, so
they make them in Detroit. So
so he's got plenty of power to carry those things around up there.
Yeah, so I think the Lions are 1. Packers will finish 2.
I think it's going to be a close. I think it's going to be a close 2, though. It's going to. I think it'll be. I bet it's like a 1-game separation between the two at the end of the season.
It'll be a 1-game or a tiebreaker situation. It'll be stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Bears, I believe, are in 3rd position. I think they're building, and they could sneak into a wild card. They might be. I think the Bears are going to be on the Pack's tail. They're going to be. It could go anyway, but I think the Vikings are dead last in that division.
The Bears, because that's my team and this is my division. The Bears need to get over that Green Bay hump. They can't. The last, basically since Lovie Smith left, they can't beat Green Bay.
They need 2 wins. They need 2 wins against Green Bay next season.
Yeah, and even Lovie. He didn't win all of them. I think his winning percentage against Green Bay was like 40%. So Green Bay was still winning 6 out of 10.
Yeah, they need to make a statement against the Pack and just say, hey, even if it's just for 1 season, and beat them twice in 1 season, and just be like, just to give them some confidence.
Right.
Back.
I think getting over that Green Bay hump would be huge if they can do it, and it's going to come down to who's under center. I really believe because as we know, everybody who watches the league knows. Rookie QBs often struggle, and they're not all C.J. Stroud. Most of them are.
I don't think that we have a C.J. Stroud caliber player in this draft as a QB. Now, I'm not saying that as a skill, like a skilled position, but C.J. Stroud knows that he's good, but also knows that he's not good without his team around him. Right. He needs the tools. And he's very humble, and he's very flattering to the rest of his team. The QBs that are in this draft class seem very egotistical.
I saw an interview with Caleb Williams, and he didn't come across as having a terribly huge ego. I wonder, because you've probably read the same news reports I have. It sounds like his dad is behind the scenes causing some havoc, and that's giving Caleb a bad reputation. Is possible. That's a possibility.
Like the Patrick Mahomes Sr. situation and all the shit that Pat's had to deal with his stupid brother and his wife chirping on Twitter and.
Oh, it was fun. It was funny because it was funny because at one point in time his wife didn't like Taylor and now they're best friends. So
it's funny how the tides change.
But the one of the rumors that I've read is that his dad is going to teams that are possibly going to draft and wanting ownership stakes. And there's a rule in the league bylaws: players cannot have ownership stakes until after they're done playing.
Yeah, we're still seeing that with Tommy Terrific. He still doesn't have his piece of the Raiders because there's some red tape. Right. Plus, he showed up on an BetMGM commercial with Jamie Foxx. So
apparently,
if you have any stake in the league, you can't have any stake in gambling.
No, none at all. The league wants really good, clear, delineated separation of church and state when it comes to gambling in the league. But then again, they put a stadium in Las Vegas, so go figure.
Yeah. So that pretty much sums up my look at the NFC North. You think do you see any different positions for these teams, or do you think that's pretty safe?
I think it's pretty safe, and I really I can see. I mean, I believe it'll be the Lions, but I would not be shocked if it was Green Bay again.
Yeah, it could be a checkered flag finish with these two teams. The way that they're pretty even, especially the way that they played in the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah, and they're pretty evenly matched all the way around. I think it's going to boil down to who does a better job of drafting and developing this year, and historically that has been Green Bay.
Yes,
so
and I mean, they're always hunting for another Lombardi, right?
Well, Gutekunst is doing a pretty fair job up there. You know?
So that sums up our look at the NFC North this week. So we're going to look at AFC East. We just turn the compass back to the American Football League.
And that would be
next week.
So we're probably going to have a couple of conversations about one Aaron Rodgers if that's the case.
Oh, there's a lot going on. We've got Patriots, Jets, Miami Dolphins,
Bills,
Buffalo Bills. There's a lot going on in that division, which is it's probably going to be a competitive division next year.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about them next week. Anything in the news that we need to discuss other than Combine? It's all been Combine this week.
It's the league's annual let's oogle young boys in tight shirts time of season.
It drives me crazy. It's like, who can run the fastest 40, right? It's just like, oh, okay. I don't know.
One thing that came out this week as they were talking, and it only came out because of Caleb Williams. I was not aware of this. I'm not surprised by it though. For example, a team or a player enters the draft and he's going to be, let's say, a top 10 draft pick. Any team that wants to can send their physician and give him a physical. So Caleb Williams stepped out of that loop because he didn't want to go through 32 different physicals.
I like that. I like that he did that.
I do too. And I think the league, if that is accurate, which it sounds like it is, I think the league should transition to one physician or physical protocol, and all the teams get access to that information. But rather than putting them through these, because these aren't just like checking your heartbeat and your pulse. They've got them jumping, they've got them running, they've got them cutting corners, they've got them throwing. They want to see a whole range of motion from these guys. And I wouldn't want to do that 32 times.
No.
So the league should probably consider a way to come up with just one set of drills and one set of physician notes, and every team gets access to that information. And
I think it's fair. Get an unbiased physician in there that he's like the official league physician who does it
for the rookies. And that's all he does is they go through this with everybody who declares for the draft, because you've got time. Let's face it. Most of these guys, when they declare, it's October, November, December, January, February. You've got time before the draft to get all those guys through a physical process and get these reports in the hands of the teams and let them decide. And because when I heard that, I was like, I'm not surprised, but oh my God, that sounds like a major pain in the ass.
Yeah, I understand that the quarterbacks did not want to go because of that issue. Now, why not get an NFL health commissioner or somebody like that oversees one time, or two times if need be, if there needs to be like a specialist coming.
If there's a question, yeah.
Somebody that's like that sports YouTube medic guy. Keep sending me.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name. Sorry, it's just skipped my brain.
Yeah, he's an orthopedist, and he just breaks down injuries, and he does a really good job.
So
that would,
you get like a couple specialists on a panel and have like one main dude who's like the general practitioner guy that like does all the tests.
Or even if it's just players you think are going to go in the first round, just those guys don't have to go through everything else. Something like that wouldn't bother me, but it sounds like something has to change in the way physicals are performed in the league before the draft.
Well, the league is so big on safety now. That
Right. And you're exposing these guys to 32 different options when the turf could grab his cleat and he tears his ACL, you know?
So we were talking about safety and kicks, the kickoff. We think that we talk about this like every second or if not every episode in one portion or another. That Terry and I believe
it's going to go away. It's going to go away.
It's going to go away. Well, the league is looking at discussing another thing regarding kicks.
What's that?
The onside kick rule.
Oh, they do that all the time, though. Yeah.
So if the kickoff team declares they're attempting an onside kick, they potentially could be allowed to utilize an unbalanced 6x4 formation.
Do they? I was not aware that they had to inform the officials they were going to attempt an onside kick.
They under the new rule, the onside kick attempt would only be allowed if the team is trailing in the fourth quarter, and it would require them to declare in advance. If this rule goes through.
So like we saw with the New Orleans Saints when they were in the last Super Bowl they were in, when they did the onside kick right off the bat, that's still cool.
Yeah, that's still cool right now.
The other thing I know the league is looking to get rid of is that hip drop tackle because it causes so many ankle and knee injuries.
A lot of lower leg issues with that. So,
but how do you? I mean, you've already you turn no more. You can't spear with your helmet anymore. That's too dangerous. No more leading with your head. That's too dangerous. No more tackling above the waist. That's too dangerous. Now they're going to say, well, the hip drop is too dangerous. I know what the argument's going to be from the hardcore old school guys. Why don't we just make it flag football? You're taking all the fun out of the game. But you're saving injuries, and let's face it, like not this past year, 2023, but 2022, remember what happened to Patrick Mahomes going into the playoffs. He had a hip drop, and it really messed up his ankle, and he struggled throughout that playoff run because of it.
He still won,
but that's because there hasn't been a holding call called on the Kansas City Chiefs line in the last 3 seasons during the playoffs, which is a little suspect.
Other news is 49ers are going to promote Nick Sorensen as their new defensive coordinator after their firing a couple weeks ago.
That was an odd dismissal. I guess they just had to have a scapegoat.
Yeah, and everything else is combined. Patriots released J.C. Jackson for the second time. Speaking of cornerbacks,
well, they're going to release Mac Jones too. It sounds like so.
I mean, it's a whole new coaching staff and regime in there right now. So I'm surprised they're going to walk away with anybody at the end of the.
And your boy Mac, I'm sorry, he was a dirty player.
He wasn't my boy.
Yeah, I saw a lot of questionable after the whistle activity out of Mac Jones. Man, he was a dirty player.
Unfortunately, it's probably the only quarterback out of Patriots history that I completely disliked. His hissy fits after the whistle made him look like a child on the grocery store floor that couldn't get a chocolate bar.
Right. Yeah.
From his mommy. It was. I'm sorry. I just can't get behind that kind of sportsmanship on the field.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Suck it up. Like, I lost respect for Mahomes when he got all mad about the whole.
The end of the Buffalo game.
Yeah, where his player was offside and he's yelling at the refs and he was you could read his lips, and I was just like, whoa, Patrick.
And he went to shake what's his name, the quarterback for the Bills' hand, and he didn't say, "Hey, good game." He was bitching about the call.
Yeah, he said to Josh Allen, he's just like, "Oh, that was a bullshit call," or "I couldn't believe that call." Blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean,
he didn't say, "Hey, good game, buddy."
Yeah, and they're supposed to be buddy. They're supposed to be tight. They're supposed to get along pretty well. So I
lose a lot of respect for players that do that, and Mac Jones just kind of did that every game. So
that's
having him released from the Patriots is just it's just a good thing for us.
As a Bears fan, we saw that often because Rodgers is terrible about it. He is really bad about. That call didn't go my way, and he's yelling
screaming
at the
refs
for
a pass interference or something.
Yeah, he was really bad about that. Yeah. All right, so that's I think that's it, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it for this week. Next week we look at, as I said, AFC East, and I'm excited to dive into that division a little bit because all those teams have almost no cap space, except the Patriots. Patriots are actually number one in the league in cap space, but look how they played, and you'll understand why.
They've got no cap space. Well, that's it for us for today. It's I don't know about you, Adam, but here today it's 70 degrees Fahrenheit. It is.
Oh, yeah, we got a warm one here.
It's like, it's 22 degrees Celsius. So
get out and do something. Go enjoy the day. For my broadcast partner, the ever effervescent and amicable and amiable and just an all around good guy. And anything that starts with A.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Maybe not everything.
Well, no, I'll steer away from the asshole stuff. How can we get a hold of you, Adam?
You know what? I made things a little easier for both of us. You can just click on the link in the description, which leads to all of the places you can get a hold of us. It's just a link tree straight off the couch if you've got that little thing going on in your phone. You can hit us up in email, Facebook, both of us on X or Twitter or the TweetDeck or whatever they're calling it this week. Everything's right there in the description for you guys to get a hold of us. So thank you for listening to another great episode of Straight Off the Couch. We will be sure to come back and do this again next week.
All right, boys and girls. Be safe. God bless. Thank you, one and all. Talk to you later. Kids across the aisle are setting off fireworks.
I didn't hear anything.
No, I didn't either, but